Hi everyone, this is Chris with Butterfield Studios, and we're back with another Fractal FX8 video. Today I am going to talk to you a little bit about the multi-delay, but specifically I'm going to talk to you about the Plex effect type. See, there's three different ones in here that are considered to be Plex effects within the multi-delay block. Most of my other videos, I've tried to cover the entire block in a single video. I tried to do this with the multi-delay as well, but the video was over 2 hours long, and even at 2 hours, I was rushing like mad to get through things, which, if I'm honest with you, made me make a few mistakes just by being quick. But the other thing is, it made me leave out some things or sort of gloss over some things, which are really, really, really important if you want to get the most out of these effect types. This is very different than the normal delay block in that the effect types do share some common ideas and even some common parameters, but the way that they implement them is very unique, more or less. Like these Plex delays share some ideas, I guess you could say, between them, but again, each Plex type kind of builds on the one before it. You'll see what I mean as we go ahead. Now, first things first, I am playing today a Hackstrom guitar through one of my custom Gregorius amps, and this is what it sounds like. Nice little dissonance for you. Let's just have a quick talk about this. Oh, I would say that this is number 2 in a series, and I think it would make the most sense, even if you only want to learn about the Plex delay effect types, it would make a lot of sense if you watch these in order. I'll try to not make it so that you can't follow them if you don't, but I just think you'd probably get the most out of it if you watched it in order. So if you don't want to do that, that's fine, but it's just some friendly advice. So this multi-delay, the only thing else I have running here is this comp, and it's just set to the normal studio comp. Nothing weird about it. We're set up with 8 pre, and this is going into the front of the amp, not in 4 cable method. So there's that. So we have 3 pages this time, and this is a bit different than the quad tap delay, which had 5 pages and did some really kind of unintuitive things, but it also is very powerful. This also does some unintuitive things and is also very powerful, but it's set up in a kind of different way. Now, what we saw the last time was that when we were looking at the quad tap, is that the repeats on the delays were fed back in to the taps. And the same is true here, but it's done in a kind of different way, I guess you could say. So what we need to have a look at, though, is I'm going to just turn this on. I'm going to just turn this on. And let's just have a listen. So that's very nice, and again we get to kind of delay as reverb kind of sound, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing, and it's very spacious and really cool, and it gives us all kinds of cool options as far as having a different kind of sound on tap if we want. Plus, we realize with our XY, if we need a reverb for one part of the song and a delay for another part of the song, we could use something like this for a reverb without sticking in that CPU intensive reverb block. And as a matter of fact, some people actually prefer delay as reverb sound as opposed to reverb as reverb sound. Because, well, some people don't like the, how do I say this? So if I put a guitar amp and put a mic in front of it and then a mic in the room, and I go into a recording studio and I hit record and mix those 2 signals together and listen to it through my monitors, what I'm hearing is a kind of a full frequency range recording of the room reverb and a full frequency range recording, well, as much as you can, of the guitar speaker and the microphone combination frequency range. But the point is that what you're hearing is you're hearing a mix of two different frequency range things coming through two different mics and stuff like that. Whereas if I am running the sound of a microphone in a room, capturing the room ambience, and then running that through a guitar speaker, that's some people really balk at that idea and they don't think that that's a very nice sound at all. Well, it's not they don't think it's nice, and I think we all agree that these room sounds are really excellent on the FX8. But some people would just say, it's just not really, that's not really what room reverb sounds like in a mix. So whether or not you're one of those people, whatever. But this presents a totally different way to get really spacey reverb ambient sounds that some people prefer because they don't like that other idea. Or some people just prefer the sound of it and there's no big kind of, mental calculation made. So again, let's have a listen to that. Actually, I'll do a little volume swell. So again, that's really, really, really nice. I'm going to just dump this decay time up a little bit. He says as he puts it up to 13 seconds or 12 and a half seconds. Turn the mix up a little bit more. So again, that's a gorgeous, beautiful, beautiful sound, and it's cool that you can get there without using the reverb block. Now we need to talk about what's actually going on here, though. Okay, first off, we have this high cut and low cut. That's very useful, as we have seen in the past, and that's high cut, low cut on the repeats. Then we have this mod, and this LFO was already turned on when you open up the Plex Delay, which means we were hearing modulation kind of out of the box, which is grand because it's really pretty. Now I'm going to come back here and have a quick look. These master times, master levels, and master pans, well, let's look at the delay for a second. In here we have time, level, and pan. So in here we have time, level, and pan. What these are knobs which scale the amounts entered into these knobs. So if I set all of these levels to 100 and I turn this down to 50, then it's the same thing as saying that all of these are set at 50. Now, this is where this gets a little bit confusing, and I just want to go over this really quickly and try to make this make sense. When you look at this, this says a quarter note, a dotted quarter, an eighth, and a dotted eighth, which is the common sort of preset values for these multi-delays as far as the tempos. Well, for most of them. Now, I'm going to do something here. So here's our quarter note, and I'm going to turn... So the level of the quarter, the dotted quarter, the level of the eighth note, and the level of the dotted eighth, those are all set to 0. So it's completely reasonable to think that when I play, I'm just going to hear a quarter note delay. So let's see if that's the case. So, is that the case? The answer is no. So I'm going to turn this level back up to 100. I'm going to turn this level back up to 100. And I'm going to turn this level back up to 100. Now let's hear that same thing again. Aha, you say. Now it is time for me to sharpen my email. And I guess you don't really sharpen email. but I need to hop on the forum and report a bug because these level knobs, they do nothing. Uh, wow, okay. Let's do one more thing and check something out here. See where this says diffusion 100%? I'm going to set this to 0. Okay. So we still have that rhythmic delay, but it sounds less like reverb. Now I'm going to do this. What? So now I do have a quarter note. Okay. So now I'm going to put this diffusion back to 100. Remembering that our levels are back to 0 for everything except this quarter note here. So we should be getting quarter notes, right? Okay. So at this point, you're probably kind of wanting to put your foot through your computer because it's not making any sense at all. It seems like that this level, these three levels, are somehow tied to this diffusion. And if you watched my the last multi-delay about the quad tap, you probably have copped on a little bit about what's going on here. But if not, I'll try to explain this in as clear a way as possible. What's going on here is something like in the quad tap, where these levels are kind of setting the dry amount of the signal that is hitting these taps. They're not setting the amount of feedback that is going through these taps. What else is happening is that the diffusion here is different than the diffusion on the other delay types. This word does not mean the same thing exactly. What this stands for is kind of a submix of the feedback, so the submix of the repeats that is being fed back into all of the taps. So when I turn this all the way up, it means that all of the taps are getting signal, no matter what the level is set to. Now, if I turn this level down to 0, that means that no repeats are going into that diffuser, which means I'm going to get nothing. But the second I have a level on any of these four heads or any of these four taps, no matter what I set these other levels to, I am going to, as long as this diffuser is set to anything other than 0, I am going to hear all of the taps. So this controls how much of the fed back signal, how much of the repeat signal gets fed back into the taps. So that's a very different thing than you might get. Then that's a very different thing than you might initially get from seeing these words here, levels here, and diffusion here. Now, the other thing is you will note there's a word that you see in pretty much every delay block that you've ever seen or every delay pedal you've ever seen that seems to be completely missing from this. And it's been replaced by another word which you normally associate with reverb, and that is decay time. So this kind of acts like a master feedback. Another way to say it is, it's kind of like the feedback is set really high, almost to like an infinite feedback. Not enough where it self-oscillates, but enough there where it would keep going forever and ever and ever. And this decay time says how long is it going to keep going, and it says how long will it take to fade out. So it's kind of a 2-in-1 thing because it automatically fades over this duration, but this is the entire duration of the signal as well. So, bearing all of that in mind, let us pop over to the next type of Plex delay, which is Plex Detune. Now, Plex Detune is extremely, extremely similar to the normal Plex. Plex. We do get a couple of extra knobs. One extra knob on the master mix, which is this crossfade, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then over here, we suddenly get these detune knobs on all of these blocks. Now, I would remind everybody what we just said, that these levels control the amount of dry signal that goes to these taps. They do not control the amount of fedback signal that goes to these taps. So as long as I have my diffusion up, the fedback signal is going to be detuned by that amount at that tempo. So let's just hear what this sounds like. Now, you might be forgiven if you think that that sounds like we have modulation. And as a matter of fact, you might be doubly forgiven when you notice that there is no modulation section on this third page. As you know, modulation is basically either phase or pitch detuning, or phase being out of phase, or two pitches which are slightly out of tune being played on top of each other. And that's what creates like a chorus sound. And so what we have here is, because we are running these repeats slightly out of tune, we are getting modulation. So this detune amount is our modulation setting. Now, actually, we're just gonna do something really extreme here. I'm just going to turn the modulation off on these last two, just so we can hear what it sounds like if I run two of them. One of them detuned all the way up 50 cent, and one of them detuned all the way down 50 cents. So they're 100 cent apart. And actually, let's put them both at the same tempo. Let's get them closer to each other, about half as close, or half as far away as they were last time. Look here, only 1 cent apart. Hear that? So you can get some really cool and subtle or extreme modulation effects in a different way than you get by using the LFO to kind of change the tempo or change the pitch of the delayed signal, which is what a lot of the other delay types use. So this is almost like a much more controlled version of that, I guess you could say, because you can really kind of micro-tune the amount of pitch shifting done on the repeats versus the dry signal, and add the tempo to it as well. So obviously, if I come in here and do this, we're still now, if we just do this a little bit, pull this back a tiny bit. So this is quite an interesting one, insofar as we are able to do some unique modulation things and mix them together with an almost reverby, smear the transients kind of thing going on here, and set a very specific decay time. So that's pretty cool. Now, the one last knob we can talk about here is this crossfade knob. Now, if I'm honest with you, and even if you go read the manual and look at what fade does, it's not exactly clear. So, I mean, it has a technical description of it, and you can draw a picture that represents it. But the point is, it's pretty darn subtle for the most part. So right now it's set at 50%. I'm going to put this mix all the way up so we can hear and actually pull this down a little bit so we don't have to wait 8 seconds to try it again. Okay, so here's the crossfade at 50%. Here's the crossfade at 0%. So I guess the way I would describe that is that when you put it all the way up, it seems to me that the diffusion is kind of smoother sounding and more full sounding. When you put it all the way down, it seems like the diffusion, there's less of it, basically, is what it feels like or sounds like. And you can hear the individual kind of pitch warble and stuff a lot more clearly when the crossfade is down. I don't really know exactly, to say that one is better or worse. I would suggest that most people, if they're looking for ambient sounds, would prefer it above 50%. And if they're looking for more of a just kind of modulation-y kind of thing, it could go anywhere, just depending on what your personal preference is. Okay, so this is the Plex Detune. The last Plex we'll look at is the Plex Shift. Now, again, we are getting a couple more knobs, but the basic idea behind all of this is essentially the same. If I come in here into delay pitch, we do get one extremely important knob. Now, actually, if you see that this has kept the settings from the last one, so I'm going to go put all these detunes are now set to 0. However, we have these shift knobs everywhere. I'm going to put this shift knob on 1 to 12. Let's see what happens. So I really don't think I even have to once you've seen what the Plex Detune does, I don't really think I need to explain what's going on here. I would say that I don't really. I've tried using this in all sorts of different ways. It's really to go easy to go over the top with this. Like really easy. Setting all of these at ridiculous things, and it goes pretty bonkers pretty quickly. So, whether or not that's a nice sound is up to you. I would never use that. So, actually, here, I'll do something really annoying just to show you what I mean by how bonkers it is. So, I mean, you can make it less bonkers by messing with these things. You know, I there's aside from using this for volume swells into another reverb, I haven't really found a lot of use for it. That's not to say there isn't a lot of use for it. And come here, if I put this diffusion down to 0 and listen to what it sounds like, that sounds a lot more like the pitch shifting delays we're used to hearing. If I do this and this, so now they're all dotted eighth or just eighth notes, we get this. So, that's kind of cool. I can also do some pretty insane stuff. People are already running for cover when they see what I'm doing. So, now remember, well, hang on, just check this out. So, that is definitely totally a sound. Whether or not that's an awesome sound is probably up to you. Actually, let me put this back down here. Don't know if that actually did anything. I'd have to think about that. So, what happens if I do this with that? So as you can tell, when you start doing extreme things with these, a lot of the knobs don't really do much anymore for pretty obvious reasons. So what if I do this? Okay, so I think you see, what's going on there. Let's try doing something a little bit different. So, these kind of things are actually kind of cool because you can get some really out there sounds that nobody else can figure out how you're doing. But, whether or not there's going to be a huge market for this kind of stuff is a whole different story. So, yeah, that's all fairly awful. Kind of hilarious, but fairly awful. I don't know. Maybe one of you has some amazing idea with what to do with that sound. That is not me. I do think, though, if we go back here for a second, I'm just going to reset the block real quick, so we don't end on such a sour taste. So, this Plex is really cool for creating reverb sounds. And, I it gives you such kind of fine control over the amount of detuning you can do that I'm sure, I'm absolutely positive that someone can come along and come up with some incredibly cool and unique sounds that you could get as far as like different kinds of modulation or different kind of pitch shifting and stuff like that. If you want to just use it as a reverb sound, that's also a cool idea. And there are other ways to get reverb sounds out of the multi-delay, but maybe this is the particular one that you happen to like. Anyway, I hope this video has helped some people understand what the Plex type of, what the Plex effect type within the multi-delay block does so that they can use it more creatively. I do think it's a very, very, very powerful tool. And I think once you know how to use it, you won't be as put off or as confused when you see some of these knobs, which normally mean one thing, and in this case means something kind of different. So anyway, if you have any questions or any requests or any comments, or if you want to throw a rock at me, you know where I am. I'm on the Fractal forums, I am on YouTube, and I am in the real world somewhere if you can find me. Anyway, thanks a lot, everyone, for all the nice comments and all the likes and all the watches and everything else. And I will talk to you soon with more about the multi-delay block.